So, we just had the second last debate of the NDP leadership race in Montreal today, and French language debates are a fucking struggle for me, man. Like, I get that it's necessary, but considering I have to watch it through a translator because I don't speak that much French, it's not easy to get through. I have to stay watching the actual, visuals of the debate the entire time so I know who's speaking. And as if that wasn't bad enough, I also have no way of really judging, the demeanor of the candidates, how they're responding, how confident they are in their responses. I can't judge any of that when I can't understand the language that they're speaking. As I said, I understand it's necessary. I understand this is probably how people who are francophones that don't speak English feel watching the English language debates. But god damn is it a struggle. Anyway, a big theme at this debate was rebuilding the party's strength in Quebec, and especially how to handle topics surrounding provincial jurisdiction and around Quebec's views on secularism. Now, as a supporter of Guy Caron, it's only natural that I feel he did well on these issues, especially for the audience he was in front of and the message he's trying to send of being the party's best chance of gaining strength back in Quebec. But this discussion started before today, probably around the time that Guy released his proposal on his 2019 electoral strategy for Quebec, involving a recommitment to the Sherbrooke Declaration, targeting 60 key ridings that the NDP has a shot of winning, and hiring more staff to try and achieve that goal. So this got sort of controversial, as it brought up Quebec's right to self-governance, and respecting its focus on secularism since the Quiet Revolution. While all the candidates agree that the state should not be trying to dictate people's personal religious choices, Nikki and Guy hold the position that Quebec has the right to have this debate within itself, while Charlie and Jagmeet appear to be firmly against that, in fear of bills being passed that violate people's rights. These were the positions that the candidates had all expressed prior to the debate, but also largely reaffirmed during. There was also one other new policy announcement prior to this debate that I wanted to discuss, even though it didn't actually get any discussion during the debate itself. Nikki Ashton promised that she would be introducing legislation to change our electoral system sometime during her first mandate as Prime Minister. Yeah, I'm sure no one's shocked that this isn't an announcement I'm overly excited about. After all, Guy promises such legislation as his very first bill, and Charlie Angus says he'll have it introduced within his first 6 months. For fuck's sake, even Justin Trudeau promised a better timeline. Sure, he broke that promise, but at least he said he'd do it in the first 18 months. What Nikki doesn't seem to understand is that she's not in good standing with electoral reform advocates. Earlier in her campaign, when asked about what she would do in regards to this issue, her response was basically, "Young voters seem to care about it, so I think it's something we should call Justin Trudeau out on." Now, I hear that and think, so you really don't care about electoral reform, you just want to use this to bring out the youth vote. Nikki, that's not good enough. I've had my heart broken on this promise once already, and you sound like you want to leave the door open to doing that again. Without a stronger proposal, it'll be really hard to justify any arguments in your favor on the basis of this issue. Oh, right, this is about the debate. Well, it was a lot of what we usually see. Jagmeet is still refusing to commit to running for federal office if he is an elected leader, instead being cocky and insisting that he isn't going to lose this race. There were a lot of general agreements on things like opposing Energy East, extending the Safe Third Country agreement with the US, which, as a side note, I think is ridiculous, because it is a safe third country, being willing to reopen including Quebec into the Constitution, and strengthening French language support nationwide. Of course, it would be wrong to say there was no disagreement. As I mentioned earlier, there were the differing stances on the Sherbrooke Declaration, with Jagmeet saying he supports it, then basically rattling off a list of ways that he doesn't. Guy and Nikki still seem to disagree on just how quickly the elimination of tuition fees can be achieved, and what the best way to help students and those in precarious work is. Heck, there was even a little disagreement on the Israel-Palestine situation, though this was more nuanced, and Nikki didn't even go her usual route of singing the praises of the BDS movement, instead opting to say that we must stand in solidarity with those in Palestine. I feel like Guy actually had a really good line here, though a lot of people might disagree with me, about needing to find voices in Israel that will work for peace, since as Harper was not Canada, Netanyahu is not Israel. I think this debate showed me one thing. that Nikki Ashton may actually be way more electorally viable than I previously believed, and that Charlie Angus, and to a lesser extent Jagmeet Singh, are much less electorally viable than I thought, mainly due to their stances on Quebec's ability to handle its own issues. Frankly, I think Nikki Ashton cemented herself in this debate as at the very least the second best choice for electoral success in Quebec, with Guy clearly being head and shoulders above the rest of them due to just being far more familiar with the province's situation. Is this enough to bring her up to my second choice for the vote? Not yet, as she still seems weak and honestly disingenuous on what I've repeatedly stated is my main issue, electoral reform. But she's getting there, especially as I begin to actually miss having Peter Julian in the race, giving some of her policies a less radical voice. Even though I don't think he would have made a good leader after seeing him poorly debate climate change and immigration policy with Lisa Raitt. Charlie and Jagmeet both find themselves in a weird spot with me. Both have policies that I really like, such as a strong electoral reform proposal from Charlie, or Jagmeet's stances on temporary work and personal income taxes. But then both seem to be on the wrong side of this debate around Quebec's self-governance, as well as having other issues which they're lacking on, which basically reverses the praise I just finished giving them, with Charlie not having any tax plan available really, and Jagmeet seeming very focused on identity politics and lacking any proposal for electoral reform. He, naturally, remains at the top of my ballot due to his nuanced policy positions, thorough understanding of what it would take to implement those policies by understanding what is and is not under provincial jurisdiction, and of course having the strongest position by far on getting rid of first past the post. While 2 to 4 on my ballot continue to shift, my hope is that in the end that won't matter and the NDP will have the leader most likely to see success in 2019.